Life goes on and it brings with it different challenges. Our duty is to face those challenges and find an opportunity from it. This is my belief that through difficulties and problems, God gives us the opportunity to grow. So when your hopes and dreams and goals are dashed, search among the wreckage, you may find a golden opportunity hidden in the ruins. Well said by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, in full, Awul Pakir Jainulabdin Abdul Kalam was born on October 15 in Rameshwaram, India. He was an Indian scientist and politician who played a leading role in the development of India's missile and nuclear weapons programs. He was President of India from 2002 to 2007. Kalam earned a degree in aeronautical engineering from the Madras Institute of Technology and in 1958 joined the Defence Research and Development Organization. He soon moved to the Indian Space Research Organization where he was project director of the SLV-3, India's first indigenously designed and produced satellite launch vehicle. He joined in DRDO in 1982. Kalam planned the program that produced a number of successful missiles, which helped him earn the nickname Missile Man. The following is a list of accolades and honors conferred upon APJ Abdul Kalam, the Indian aerospace scientist who served as the 11th President of India from 2000 to 2007. So, my dear children, you can go through the honors and accolades that was bestowed upon him. So, this is an excerpt or an extract taken from his autobiography, Wings of Fire. So, let's start with the chapter. The chapter is entitled My Childhood. Before we proceed with the reading, let's go through a few questions given over here. Can you think of any scientists who have also been statesmen? Of course, you have got the answer. APJ Abdul Kalam, whose projects in space, defense, and nuclear technology guided India into the 21st century, became our 11th president in 2002. In his autobiography, as I told you right now, Wings of Fire, he speaks of his childhood. Now let's start. He says in his autobiography, this is a small excerpt or extract, you can say, which has been taken from his autobiography, and he says, I was born into a middle-class Tamil family in the island town of Rameshwaram in the erstwhile Madras state. My father, Jainulabdin, so Jainulabdin was his father, had neither much formal education, so he had neither received any formal education nor much wealth. Despite these disadvantages, which he says, he possessed great innate internal wisdom, okay, this wisdom in terms of knowledge and a true generosity, humbleness of spirit. He had an ideal helpmate in my mother, Ashiyamma. I do not recall the exact number of people she fed every day, but I am quite certain that far more outsiders ate with us than all the members of our own family put together. So here he describes his parents, that is his father and mother. Okay, I was one of many children, a short boy with rather undistinguishing looks, born to tall and handsome parents. We lived in our ancestral house, which was built in the middle of the 19th century. It was really large pucca house made of limestone and bricks on the Mosque Street in Rameshwaram. So as I told you, we lived in Rameshwaram. My austere father, austere here means, can anyone tell me the meaning of austere? Means ordinary. Okay, he was an ordinary man. You considered him to be ordinary man, but he was full of generosity. Okay, he was a very generous man on the other side. My austere father used to avoid all inessential comforts and luxuries. However, all necessities were provided for in terms of food, medicine, or clothes. In fact, I would say mine was a very secure childhood, both materially and emotionally. Okay, though they were not very rich, but his father made sure that he get all the basic amenities. Okay, and he also says that his childhood was quite secure, both materially and emotionally. The Second World War broke out in 1939 when I was 8 years old. For reasons I have never been able to understand, A sudden demand for tamarind seeds erupted in the market. I used to collect the seeds and sell them to a provision shop on Moss Street. A day's collection would fetch me the princely sum of 1 anna. My brother-in-law Jalaluddin would tell me the stories about the war, which I would later attempt to trace in the headlines in Dinamani. Dinamani is a Tamil daily newspaper. The newspaper was established in 1933 and is owned by the New Indian Express. Okay, so must know that Dinamani is the name of Tamil daily newspaper. Our area being isolated was completely unaffected by by this war, that is the Second World War that has erupted. Isn't it? Erupted now. India has also joined the elite forces like the armies of UK, US, and Russia during the World War II. You can see over here, it is mentioned over here. But soon India was forced to join the allied forces and something like a state of emergency was declared. The first casualty means the accident came in the form of the suspension of the train. Halt means stop at Rameshwaram station. The newspapers now had to be bundled and thrown out from the moving train on the Rameshwaram road between Rameshwaram and Dhanusukli. That forced my cousin Shamshuddin, who distributed newspaper in Rameshwaram, to look for a helping hand to catch the bundles, and as it naturally, I filled the slot. Shamshuddin helped me earn my first wages. Half a century later, I can still feel the surge of pride in earning my own money for the first time. So this is how Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam earned his first money, isn't it? Earned his own money for the first time. Now next he says, every child is born with some inherited characteristic into a specific socio-economic and emotional environment. Okay, that is inherited by the figures of authority. He refers to his father and mother. I inherited, he says, honesty and self-discipline from my father. From my mother, I took in faith in goodness and deep kindness, and so did my three brothers and sisters. I had three close friends in my childhood, Ramanatha Shastri, Arvindan, and Shiprakash. All these boys were from Orthodox Hindu Brahmin families. As children, none of us ever felt any difference amongst ourselves because of our religious differences and upbringing. In fact, Ramanatha Shastri was the son of Pakshi Lakshmana Shastri, the high priest of Rameshwaram temple. Later, he took over the priesthood of Rameshwaram temple from his father. Arvindan went into business of arranging transport for visiting pilgrims, and Shiv Prakashan became a catering contractor for the Southern Railway. So here in this paragraph, you have come to know the qualities that he inherited from his father and mother. That is, he learned the lesson of self-discipline from his father. From his mother, he inherited faith in goodness and deep kindness, and so did his three brothers and sisters as well. Again, he talks about his three close friends, that is Ramanatha Shastri, Arvindan, and Shiprakasan, and the occupation they opted for later in their. Next he says, during the annual Sri Sita Rama Kalyanam ceremony, our family used to arrange boats with a special platform for carrying idols of Lord from the temple to the marriage site, situated in the middle of the pond called Rama Tirtha, which was near our house. Events from the Ramayana and from the life of the prophet were the bedtime stories my mother and grandmother would tell the children in our family. So these children were influenced by the stories of the great author, isn't it, as well as from the great book, that is Ramayana. One day, when I was in fifth standard at Rameshwaram Elementary School, a new teacher came to our class. I used to wear a cap which marked me as a Muslim, and I always sat in the front row next to Ramanatha Shastri, who wore the sacred thread. Sacred thread here means holy thread. The new teacher could not stomach a Hindu priest's son sitting with a, could not stomach means could not tolerate. Okay, he could not tolerate, the new teacher could not tolerate a Hindu priest's son sitting with a Muslim boy. In accordance with our social ranking, as the new teacher saw it, I was asked to go and sit on the back bench. I felt very sad, and so did Ramanatha Shastri. He looked utterly downcast as I shifted to my seat in the last row. The image of him weeping when I shifted to the last row left a lasting impression on me. Okay, so this is how he describes our India, isn't it? Old India. Even today also, still such kind of discrimination are prevalent in some parts of the country, where people are differentiated on the basis of their caste, creed, etc., even the color also. Just now recently an incident, 2 months back, I think, had taken place in America as well. That is, man was discriminated on the basis of his color. So such kind of things do exist now also, but then again it has diminished to certain extent. After school, we went home and told our respective parents about the incident. Lakshmana Sastri summoned the teacher and in our presence told the teacher that he should not spread the poison of social inequality and communal intolerance in the minds of innocent children. He bluntly asked the teacher to either apologize or quit the school and the island. Not only did the teacher regret his behavior, but the strong sense of conviction, belief Lakshmana Sastri conveyed ultimately reformed this young teacher. So finally, the teacher was reformed, okay, or he was also told either not to practice such kind of things or he should leave the island. On the whole, the small society of Rameshwaram was very rigid in terms of the segregation of different social groups. However, my science teacher, Shivasubramanya Iyer, though an orthodox Brahmin with a very conservative vibe, was something of a rebel. He did his best to break social barriers so that people from varying backgrounds could mingle easily. He used to spend hours with me and would say, Kalam, I want you to develop so that you are on par with the highly educated people of the big city and you could bring the change here. Isn't it? You can equalize, you can be par, you can level those people and could bring a certain change in our society. Next, he says, one day he invited me to his home for a meal. His wife was horrified at the idea of a Muslim boy being invited to dine in her ritually pure kitchen. She refused to serve me in her kitchen. Shivasubramanya Iyer was not perturbed, he was not disturbed when he saw this, because he very well knew that this would happen. Okay, because of the caste system that was prevalent at that time. Not that he get angry with his wife, but instead he retaliated. My dear children, there are two ways you can retaliate others. One, being silent, and other isn't it, by being aggressive and shouting on others. Now you have to decide which would be better, and that would save your energy. Served me with his own hands and sat down beside me to eat his meal. His wife watched us from behind the kitchen door. I wondered whether she had observed any difference in the way I ate rice, drank water, or cleaned the floor after the meal. And we have studied a poem by James Kirkup as well, that is No Men Are Foreign, isn't it? We are not stranger to each other. The same blood, the color of the blood is red in us as those who live abroad, isn't it? It is not at all different from those who are Hindu or Sikh or Muslim or Christians. The blood is of the same color, isn't it? They have the same hands, the same eyes gifted by God. So why to have any such kind of or make any differentiation on the basis of caste or anything as such? When I was leaving his house, Shivasubramanya Iyer invited me to join him for dinner again the next weekend. Observing my hesitation, he told me not to get upset, saying, once you decide to change the system, such problems have to be confronted. You must be ready to face the challenge. And if you really want to see the change, isn't it? When I visited his house the next week, Shivasubramanya, Iyer's wife, took me inside the kitchen and served me food with her own hands. Again, she was also reformed, completely reformed, and she very well understood the message what her husband wanted to convey to her. Nothing changes, my dear children. Okay, if you serve needy, okay, those whom you call Dalits, okay, because they are after all human beings, and our first lesson that we must learn is that we are human beings and we must serve humanity first of all. Then the Second World War was over and India's freedom was imminent. Indians will build their own India, declared Gandhiji. So this was definitely this was a sort of a very short thing that India was going to get freedom. The whole country was filled with an unprecedented optimism. Okay, unprecedented means yet to come, and optimism, positive outlook. This positive news, they were waiting for the positive news. I asked my father for permission to leave Rameshwaram and study at the district headquarters in Ramanathapuram. He told me, as if thinking aloud, Abul, I know you have to go away to grow. Does the seagull not fly across the sun? Alone and without a nest, he quoted Khalil Gibran to my hesitant mother. Khalil Gibran's lines from his poem, Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. So, somewhere in some point of life, they must be set free, isn't it? They must be set free to serve others, to serve their country, and do something good for their people. They come through you, but not from you, isn't it? They must have that potential to build their own identity since they're born as individuals, he says. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. Please, he just urges and pleads his wife not to curb Abu's freedom and none of their freedom, isn't it? Because everybody is born with their own thoughts and freedom to express those thoughts. So here we complete our next chapter, my dear children. Hope you would have liked the explanation. Okay, I'll be back with a new chapter again. Take care of yourselves. Thank you.